This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. You guys asked a ton of questions this week. I'm going to try to get to them. The first questions come from a Celtics fan. Celtics and Browns fan. It's a wild combination here, but Celtics the best says, hey Q, could you update us on what's going on with Greg Newson and how it affects our defense going forward, depending on his availability and his mobility once he returns? Now, what I'm hearing is that he has a groin injury. The severity of that, I'm not sure. I don't think anybody has observed that his gait is like wildly off. And when I say gait, I mean like the way that he walks. If you have a severe groin pull, it usually really affects your ability to walk to the point where you might need crutches. It doesn't seem like it's at that point with him. I know the Browns are really cautious when it comes to specifically soft tissue injury. So they're going to play it safe no matter what. If they feel like Greg Newsom has a reoccurring hamstring, if they feel like he has a reoccurring groin injury, they're going to limit his snaps in practice. They're going to limit the amount of team snaps he gets in practice for almost the whole year. And then they're going to be real cautious about how much they let him play in the preseason, if they let him play at all. And, be cautious about his status for games going forward, because they don't want those groin things or soft tissue injuries kind of turning into a reoccurring chronological issue. So I think they're just being cautious for everything that I know about it. Now, yeah, from what I've heard, he's expected to be 100% from the opener. I don't think that he's seriously injured. I think he'll be back soon enough. They're just being cautious with those soft tissue injuries. Thank you for the question. Next question comes from Spark Q, who says, hey Q, do you think Jim Schwartz specifically requested Shelby Harris and Zadarius Smith? Like, do you think they work together in picking up the names in free agency, or do you think it was Andrew Berry gets what he can and what he feels like is best, and it's up to the coaches, hopefully, to make the best use of talent? I think there's significant evidence that shows that Andrew Berry is a fairly cooperative GM. And what I mean by that is he is going to work with the coordinators on each side of the ball on a list. What do you feel like you need? The reason I feel pretty confident in saying this is for years, Andrew Berry was here, didn't prioritize the defensive tackle position, but very much prioritized the secondary and really filled that secondary up to the brim. Jim Schwartz gets hired, who prioritizes the interior defensive line and edge rush, and all of a sudden we're signing more edge rushers, more interior defensive linemen. I think Andrew Berry gets the best players he can find for the list that Jim Schwartz or Kevin Stefansky puts out there for him to get. So while I don't think Jim Schwartz specifically points and says, I want Shelby Harris, or says, I want Zadarius Smith, Jim Schwartz probably sits there, has a conversation with Andrew Berry. He's like, hey, if we can get these guys, this mode of player, I would be very happy with this at this position. If we can get these guys in this mode of player, I'll be very happy with that. And then Andrew Berry looks at that list, sees what's available, calls around, pokes around to see who he might be able to pry away with a trade or something like that, fix out his targets, and then goes after it. I think that's how that process works. It's a collaborative one. I don't think he is throwing these players on the roster and saying, hey, deal with it, coaches, because the strategies and what players they go after have changed with every coordinator that's been on the team while Andrew Berry was here. So that's why I think that is the process. We got KRTASF who says, hey Q, after watching the Commanders preseason game, I noticed that we were very aggressive on fourth down. Do you think this will remain a preseason trend, or do you think Stefanski will play call more aggressively in the season? I don't think more aggressively, but I think we have forgotten that Kevin Stefanski is aggressive on fourth down. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to maintain to be aggressive, and it's only going to bug us if we suck at our execution of it. This team should be good in 4th and 1 in short yardage situations during the regular season. So I expect them to be aggressive, and I expect that to work out for them. But if it doesn't, people are going to be furious, and that's the gamble of being aggressive on 4th down. Works out, you're a genius, you're Andy Reid. If it doesn't, you're Brandon Staley, and people think you should get fired. Cold game, that's the reality of it. DJ says, what up, Q? So we signed Shelby Harris, and that should solidify our defensive line. My question to you is, does this set up JOK for a true breakout year? As always, I enjoy the content. Keep up the great coverage. Lastly, looking forward to the bragging rights in the fantasy league. Ah, man, you wish. I don't know. I'm pretty trash at fantasy, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think Shelby Harris kind of solidifies that defensive line rotation, especially in the back end of it, because now that you have 2 solidified starters, you have Siaki Ika, who you're going to give time, and then you have a spot for either Jordan Elliott or Maurice Hurst to win out in camp, and you should be pretty fine there. I don't think that rotation is going to bug me throughout the year. Does that unlock JOK? I think it does in a way. I think it allows him to fly around and be more free, not have to worry about guys running free at him. I think that would be very good for JOK. So thank you for the question. Next question comes from Noah Brown, who says, Q, what should I look forward to in joint practices with the reigning NFC champion Eagles? I hope that this will be a good test of what's to come this season, that we can compete with the elite teams. It's going to be interesting to see. I think what we should look forward to from these joint practices is I want to see this team compete. The Eagles are going to make some plays on both sides of the ball. That's fine. As long as the Browns are making an equal amount of plays or close to an equal amount of plays, is really what you want to see, especially stuff along the line of scrimmage. You're not going to see that much. But what you do want to see is, hey, they're going to get in those 7-on-7s. We know Deshaun Watson has looked good in 7-on-7s. We want to see that carry on when he's facing unfamiliar defense. And I think the fact that he was able to get some work against a team before joint practices is going to be very helpful for him. So that's really what I would want to see from joint practices this week. The next question comes from KJ33, who says, yo, Q, do you think Jim Schwartz and Bill Callahan collaborate together? And to be specific, do you think they collaborate on techniques, possibly giving others information in the trenches that they somehow haven't learned yet? Second question, what kind of impact do you think those two put in their mind together can have? I mean, they're going to collaborate with each other because they're on the same staff. So, yeah, they do. But I think their collaboration isn't, oh, man, I got these tricks of the trade to teach you, Bill Callahan. And I think that kind of stuff is overrated when it comes to what makes a good coach. These coaches aren't teaching anything that hasn't been taught before. The game of football is pretty mature. Everything that can be done on a football field has been done. There's not many secrets out there left to be discovered. So I don't think that kind of stuff happens that often. But what I do think happens is, hey, Jim Schwartz wants to work something with his defensive ends. And he's like, I want to work how to get off of an offensive lineman who's doing this technique. So they're going to work together to kind of have their offensive linemen practicing that technique while they're working that opposite angle from the defensive end room. Stuff like that. You know, oh yeah, where the offensive line had trouble with stunts and twists in the preseason game last week. So Jim, do you think it's possible to have your defensive ends run a lot of stunts and twists so we can work on that kind of a thing and work on your variations of it? so we can figure this out and figure out what we're going to do to communication for the offensive line. That's how these coaches usually collaborate. And I think that's probably the best way for it to go. The next question comes from Michael, who says, hey Q, what version of Deshaun do you think we get with the Browns this season? I personally think his 2019 season is the best. What are my thoughts on that? Yeah, I would agree. I think Deshaun's 2019 season is his best season. And I think that not because the numbers are gaudy. I think it's because if you go back and look at what he accomplished in that season, a lot of fourth quarter comebacks, a lot of amazing plays and moments, that was the best of Deshaun Watson that we've seen so far. I think 2020 was a really good season. It was him trying to make the best out of a bad situation, but ultimately, it wasn't that successful of a campaign when it comes to wins and losses. And I'm not saying that's the only reason I'm judging that season, but I'm saying some of that, because the team was so bad, some of those numbers were inflated because of that. That 2019 season, nothing inflated about that. That's the Deshaun that you want to see. And if he continued to put together years that look like that, he would be up there with the Joe Burrows and the Justin Herberts of the world, instead of fighting to reestablish himself in that position. So that's where I am with that question. Thank you for asking it. The next question comes from Rats95, who says, Browns should have a top offense. I keep finding myself saying never have in a good way. Players on the offense have never played with a more reliable QB, including Cooper. Watson has made the most of wide receivers more reliable, including Cobb, who played most seasons with Aaron Rodgers. Most wide receivers had a plus 68% catch percentage with Watson. Watson also never had a running back like Nick Chubb. Will Fuller, Watson's number 2, most career was hurt, and most games played in the season was 11. Never had as reliably of a wide receiver's weapons group. Yeah, I think this is why, on top of the money, obviously, why Watson chose to play here, because he saw these things too. He saw Nick Chubb. He saw what they were building on the offensive side of the ball. He knows that they got Myles Garrett, things like that. And he saw that this team and this roster could win a Super Bowl, in his opinion. So, yeah, I think that's why he's here. I think that's why everybody's excited in that building, because I think for most people on this team, they've never had a lot of the things that they've had on this team, right? Myles Garrett has never had the amount of help on the defensive line that he has this year. Denzel Ward has never had the amount of corners and safeties to support him that he has this year. You could look at it on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think, the offensive line, there are people like Ethan Posick has probably never had a more supported offensive line in his career, where he's the 4th best guy on this line. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are in a situation to where they haven't been with, and that's because this situation that the Browns have, the talent that they've accumulated, is rare. And hopefully they get a rarer result, which is 1 out of 32, which is the Super Bowl. That's the hope. But that's it for this week's Q&A. I want to thank everybody for asking the questions. You guys have a great day. Have an even better night.